Welcome to another episode of Hollywood Kitchen. And I'm so excited today to welcome my friend April Clemmer.
Aww.
She is an expert on Hollywood history. She does walking tours, she does virtual lectures, events, all sorts of great stuff, which we will talk about. And we are here today to talk about Lana Turner. For those of you who may not be familiar with Lana, and I don't know who isn't, but if you aren't, if there's any chance you aren't, Lana was discovered in a soda shop in the late 1930s. So we are going to talk about her Cinderella-like discovery, her tempestuous personal life, which included, I think, about 8 marriages, her Oscar nomination, her 40, 50 plus movies, her scandal, one of the greatest in modern day Hollywood history. There's a lot to talk about with Lana.
Definitely.
So much.
And I always like to say Lana is someone that everybody knows a little bit about. So we hope that you can walk away today maybe knowing a lot more about her.
Yes, I agree. And one of the reasons we chose to do a milkshake, when I was researching this episode, I found that Lana, there's a recipe for shrimp scampi, which was done by someone on one of our Oscar cook-alongs. There's also a Lana recipe for salsa. Now, in reading in depth about her, her daughter basically said that other than emptying out an ashtray, Lana did not do stuff around the house at all. So I think that a lot of us can relate to that. And also, I think that that gives us a lot of leeway to do kind of what we want. And since it's still very hot outside, it is still summertime, I thought a milkshake sounded really, really good.
Yes. And I'm really excited about milkshakes because I am one of those people that's not extremely domestic. For instance, I just had a cooking triumph the other day. I made rice. It was 45-minute rice. That's why it was a big deal. I was like, I've never done this before.
I cook, but I will say I have a lot of failures. I have a lot of disasters. So God bless me, I try, but it's not easy.
I love that you go for it.
I try, but I am not that great at it. I just try. So we are going to start out with the milkshake because we don't want the ice cream to melt on us. So I went down a rabbit hole on milkshakes, which I tend to go down food rabbit holes as well as history. And I did not realize the milkshake started in about 1885. Oh. And it was originally a whiskey-based drink that had milk and whiskey in it. And then it wasn't until about 1900 or so that it technically kind of became more of a non-alcoholic soda shop type of beverage, and that it became extremely popular in the 1920s and 30s and 40s. And you had the rise of the drugstore soda fountain. And so I kind of went down a rabbit hole on all of that. And they used to make them with malted powder, like malted milk powder.
Can you tell me what that is? Because I asked my husband, I was like, what is a malted? Like, I've just been going through life being like, oh yeah, malted. And I didn't know what it was.
Well, it's like this powdery wheat thing. I'd have to look it up again, to be honest with you, but it kind of has a very unique taste to it. Like, I know when I was a little girl in the 1980s, we'd go to the mall and my mom would always buy us a little handful of malted milk chocolate balls. And there were these little chocolate balls you pop in your mouth.
Okay, I feel like I've had that candy.
Yeah,
it has that weird, crunchy out.
Yeah, they were really popular during our childhood. And I tried to find malted milk powder, couldn't find it at my local store. So I thought, well, in the spirit of keeping things simple, we're just going to make a basic milkshake. So we're going to do chocolate. And by the way, I read too, the original flavors that were done on this were chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry. And it's only till later years that it became fashionable to do all these unique flavors of milkshake that you might see today. But back in the day, those 3 were the top 3 common flavors.
Yeah, classic.
Pretty classic. So we're going to start out with about 3 scoops of chocolate ice cream or thereabouts. And it's hard to do the recipes too, because it depends on how many people you're making it for. It depends on how thick you want your milkshake or how drinkable you want it. If you want to eat it with a spoon or a straw, there's so many ways to do this. I hate to use oh, here's a spoon. Wait a minute. Okay. Here's a spoon. Okay, so we're going to start out with quite a bit of yummy chocolate ice cream. Normally, I make my own ice creams at home, but this week was busy and I just didn't have time to do that. But I think Lana can understand.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to add some milk. Again, you can kind of eyeball how much milk probably needs to be added. I'm going to do about a third, maybe half cup.
That always freaks me out. Like when people are like, just throw a dash or eyeball it. I'm like, I don't
True. Maybe this is why I definitely have my issues in the kitchen, getting in trouble. All right, I'm going to take this to the blender. It might make a noise, so just sit tight. I'll be right back.
Well, and to steady my nerves, I have a little glass of champagne. So cheers to you guys.
Where's the lid for the blender?
The lid.
Yeah, I do not want your beautiful April's kitchen was recently remodeled, you guys, and it looks incredible. And I do not want chocolate all over the ceiling. Oh, here it is.
Oh, is that it? Okay, yeah, all right. I was like, do we have a lid? Yeah, I have something fun too to show you guys while Carrie's mixing that. So you could, or actually, I'll wait. I won't talk over the blender. Oh, I think you just press there's like a button, you just press it again. Yes.
Ah, okay.
I do know a little bit about the blender.
Okay, the milk looks really thick, so I'm going to add a little bit more milk because it's really thick.
Oh, okay. Cool. Just watching Carrie do her magic.
I finally found the off button.
Oh, awesome.
I'm so proud of myself for finding the off button.
Hooray.
Okay. Well, now I think I made it too thin.
Oh, it's
so this is a lot of trial and error going into all this. But that's okay. And we're going to top these suckers off with some whipped cream.
The best part.
Yep. And I even brought some maraschino cherries. So yeah. Each get a maraschino cherry on top of our milkshake. Okay. So should we do, I brought straws?
Yes.
Got to be nice and fancy.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Should we do a milkshake toast to Lana?
Yes. And her career.
To Lana.
Very good.
Very chocolatey. So I'm going to put the ice cream back in the freezer, and then we'll get started on our deep dive on Lana.
Oh, this little thing I was going to show you guys really quick. I found on eBay, and when you could write into studios for a star photograph, I just wanted to show you what that would look like. So this little guy, this is the envelope that I bought. So it has the MGM logo here. They paid the postage, which is so kind. And so it was addressed to D. Martin in Larkspur, Ohio, because that's all you had to put on a letter back then. And then he got this little autograph photo. Whoops. I didn't drop it in the milkshake. It's okay. Of Lana. So this is the kind of stuff you could get from the studio back in the day. And I think that's really cool that you could just write in and get some little merch, memorabilia.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I wanted to talk about was Lana's backstory. She was born in Wallace, Idaho in 1921. Her mom and dad were very poor, and then her father was murdered when she was little. To my knowledge, it's an unsolved homicide. I believe he was at a card game or gambling, and then they found him dead in the street the next day.
Yeah, and in Lana's autobiography, she says that he told her he was going to buy her a bicycle, and then it goes on to say that he had been bragging to some of his friends that that's what he was going to buy with what he won from the poker game. And his left shoe and sock was missing when they found him, and that was where people knew him to keep his money. I don't know why you would tell people that. Don't tell
people where your stuff is. But that's really sad, though. And it had to have been a super traumatic thing as a little kid to have your parent die like that.
Yeah, she seemed to really idolize her father. And, I think that's easy to do when someone dies young. But she says she remembers him dancing around with her when she was a little girl. And she always said that she got her dancing talent from him because the girl did like to go out to the nightclubs and dance. And she does, I think, sort of look like her father in some of the photos that you see. So yeah, that was a big loss.
Yeah. And then she and her mother, Mildred, came out to Los Angeles. Mildred was a hairdresser, right?
She was.
Okay. And then we get to the famous discovery story because Lana has one of the most famous discovery stories in Hollywood history. Tell us what happened and tell us why it became the stuff of legend.
So Lana went to Hollywood High School, I think for just about a month when they first came to Los Angeles. And one day she cut typing class and went across the street to, this is where we get into the first, it's probably also one of the most misquoted, I think, stories. In case you guys are wondering, this is like a whole script I have about Lana, because I need notes because girl had a crazy life. But so we say you'll often hear she went to Schwab's. There wasn't a Schwab's there. So she didn't go to Schwab's. But I have 3 different names of what this place was possibly called, including things out of the city directory, like different books. But you have Curry's Top Hat Malt Shop, you have the Top Hat Cafe, and you have Curry's Ice Cream Parlor. So at this point, you can just take your pick. But she went there. And as we were saying earlier, the legend that she was having a malted was really the most popular story. That's a lot more glamorous than a Coke, which is what Lana swears that she had, because she said the Coke only cost a nickel. She couldn't afford a malted. A nickel was all she had. But anyway, she's sitting there and there's another gentleman at the soda fountain that's kind of looking over at her. And he says something to the soda jerk, and the soda jerk comes over and says, "Excuse me, miss, there's a gentleman down at the end of the counter that would like to speak to you. He's okay. He comes in a lot." And let me just talk about this moment for a second. How much better is life back then when people don't just, well, I maybe in other parts of the country it's different, but people just can kind of come up to you and just start talking and be crazy out here. So I really appreciate it. I mean, you don't know what to say. You're like, I don't know you. What do you know?
True.
And this girl is 15 years old. So I just think that's so nice that was a custom, that if you wanted to speak to someone, you would get an introduction and make sure it's okay, that he's not weirding her out. And so this gentleman is Billy Wilkerson, who published the Hollywood Reporter. And he knew Star Quality when he saw it. And he saw Lana Turner and he thought, this girl, I think, can be in movies. And so Lana said she'd speak to him, and he introduced himself and he said, "Would you like to be in the movies?" And she said, "I don't know. I'll have to ask my mother."
I love that.
That's not what I would have said. I would have been like, where do I sign up?
Right.
But she goes home and talks to her mother, and they were staying with a friend. They had just gotten to Los Angeles and hadn't had time to find their own place and really couldn't afford to get their own place, honestly. And her mother spoke to the neighbor they were staying with. And she said, "No, this guy he's legit and you should definitely talk to him." So they made an appointment and Lana went in to see him. And I can go into more, but I've been talking a lot. So
the rest, as they say, is history.
Yeah.
Well, Lana's first film role was in 1937, and it was a movie called They Won't Forget. And she's got a small role in this film, and she plays a young girl who gets murdered very early on in the movie. And she's in an extremely tight sweater. And she's in a malt shop, I think in the movie, it's been a while since I've seen it, and then she leaves the shop and she walks down the street, and you see her very pretty figure and her breasts in a tight sweater. And that kind of launched Lana as the sweater girl, which I think they love to slap monikers on actresses back then. Like, and Sheridan was the oomph girl, Clairvaux was the it girl. There's all these things, and they got a lot of publicity when they got these monikers. So the sweater girl thing really struck very big. And obviously Lana made an impression, and that's kind of an appropriately titled movie, They Won't Forget, because obviously they didn't.
Yeah. And it's so funny. She went to see the film, and they did a lot of filming her walking. And she did have some dialogue, but mostly she says they just filmed me walking a lot. And so she goes to see the premiere, And then she sees what they've been filming, which is they've even scored the music in the scene to emphasize the way her body is moving. And she and her mother just like sink lower and lower and lower in their seats. She's really embarrassed. And she, on the way out, asks someone, I don't really look like that, do I? And the guy said, fortunately, you do. And so I always say that was her walk into stardom.
And she was so young. She's like 15 years old. I mean, that's got to kind of be really a lot to be put in a spotlight and then have your sexuality up there on a giant screen and you're 15. I mean, I think that would be pretty shocking for just about anybody.
Yeah, I think it definitely was for her. And at this point, she, when she got her first paycheck, she got $50 a week with her contract, and she came home and put it in her mom's hands. And she said, you never have to work again. And actually that was true. Her mom never had to work again, but for a long time, it was just a career in a way to make money and something fun and exciting to do. But I don't think she took it seriously for a while.
Well, also, it was like not like she set out to go to drama school and set out to become an actress like so many of them did. And also, one thing that's interesting is that years ago, TCM made a terrific documentary, which I couldn't find online anymore. It was called Lana Turner, A Daughter's Memoir. Mm-hmm. And in one of the titles of one of the sections of that documentary is The Bombshell Job Was Open. Because if you think about it, yes. Jean Harlow died in 1937. And Harlow's death left a gigantic void, not just at MGM, but I would argue in Hollywood in general. Yeah. And then Lana Turner literally showed up that year. And then Lana was, as they say, the right person, the right place, the right time, because MGM needed a sex bomb that was platinum blonde, and Lana was there to take that job.
Yeah, I have a presentation that I've done on Lana Turner and her whole life. And in it, I have actually this photo behind us, this photo of Lana. And there is a photo almost exactly like this that was done of Jean Harlow. And it's really funny to look at the two of them together, because they were just they were literally slotting her into the role, even in the same, pinup poses.
And also Lana made several films with Clark Gable, as did Jean Harlow. Yeah. So there's definitely a lot of parallels, because I always say, I'm sure you do too, when we talk about film history, that everything was always built on something that came before. Yeah. So Lana was just a brick on top of the Jean Harlow brick. She was just another continuation of the kind of the archetype, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely.
And MGM would always, when they signed Lana, and when they signed stars, a lot of the female stars, of course, they would test them out in the Andy Hardy series, Esther Williams, Judy Garland, Lana Turner. So many of these young women were kind of cast in these wholesome Andy Hardy movies. Lana was the kissing bug, opposite Mickey Rooney. And that was an early role for Lana. And I think, let me know if I get this wrong, but I think one of Lana's really big breakthrough roles was Ziegfeld Girl.
Yeah, and I actually was a second ago, I wanted to say something about that, but I want to skip over anything in between. But when I talked about her not really taking her career seriously until later, Ziegfeld Girl was really the movie that made her start to think about, I'm an actress, and enjoy it. And her part is so great. I cannot say enough great things about this movie, first of all, but
it's epic.
She has this, I actually, this is one of the photos I pulled out.
The staircase scene.
Yes. And this
so
is
good.
So I said that They Won't Forget, they filmed this walk, and that's sort of her walk into, being a starlet. And when she walks down the stair, and I'm assuming most of you guys have seen it. I think most people have, but you should definitely watch it. No spoilers or anything.
And by the way, Hedy Lamarr is in it. Judy Garland is in it. There's a giant epic production number directed by Busby Berkeley. Yeah. Lana Turner. I mean, you get a lot of bang for your buck with Ziegfeld.
Early Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah.
But when she does this, she has this scene where she walks down the stairs. And I think I didn't come up with this quote, but I've read that she started at the top of the stairs as a starlet, and she lands at the bottom, an actress. And but in this film, her part was she started to do well, and so they started to add more scenes, and she would get a little more dialogue, and she figured out what was happening, and she was smart enough to start taking it very seriously and work very hard with the acting coaches that they had at MGM. And
I think Lillian Burns was one of them.
Yes, yeah, that was who it was. And yeah, it's such a great film. It tells the story of these three young women who all start in the Ziegfeld Follies, and I'm also obsessed with the Ziegfeld Follies. And she she takes a certain path, and you just sort of see how their lives unfold. And I love Hollywood doing itself, as Lana does later in another film. But Ziegfeld Girl, is definitely the one where she comes out and they're like, oh, we might have an actress on our hands.
Yeah. This is kind of her arrival as an actress, really. And meanwhile, it's kind of hard to know how to weave in the personal life to all that's going on professionally speaking. But Lana was very impulsive. Her first marriage was, I believe, in about 39 or so, right, to Artie Shaw.
Yes.
And it was a complete disaster. They got married on the first date. And then Artie kind of had this habit of marrying women that were gorgeous, glamorous, etc., and then being angry that they weren't intellectual and angry that they hadn't gone to college. And he tried to make them something they really weren't. And it's like, well, why did you marry this person if you obviously don't like who they are and what they're interested in? And Lana was married, 7, 8 times. Artie was married 8 times. So yeah, this was kind of a mess.
And to talk about her marriages, when I presented on her in the past, I found a very succinct way to do it.
Oh, tell me.
So you just have to, here we go. Thank you guys for your patience. You just have to kind of just rip through them really quick.
Okay.
Let's do it. Because some of them are more important and we can talk about more later, but I know when you talk about her, you want to talk about the 8 husbands. So I found the most efficient way to do it.
I'm here for this.
So we have Artie Shaw, Stephen Crane.
Okay.
Father of Cheryl Crane, Lana's only daughter. We'll talk about him more. Next, she has Bob Topping. He's a millionaire that Lana marries on the rebound from Tyrone Power. Lex Barker, the only other movie star celebrity that she marries and then divorces when she finds out he's been sexually abusing her daughter. And there's a guy named Fred May that she marries, and he was probably the person she's most compatible with, but I think they met when they were older and they were just too set in their ways and they just couldn't get along, get used to each other's quirks. So they had a huge fight, but it was sort of a straw that broke the camel's back from a lot of little fights. Next, she marries Robert or Bob Eaton, who cheats on her while she's off filming, and the maid is so incensed that this has happened that she saves the sheets and shows it. Yes. Yeah, that maid was not messing around. I would like to have somebody loyal like that in my life.
That maid has got your back.
She did. She showed Lana the sheets, and Lana divorced him. And then her final husband, his name is Ronald Dante, and he's freaking weird. And he is just the story of, she's been through all these husbands, and after this, she's like, I'm done. He was a magician. Fair. He pulls the ultimate disappearing act when he is on a press tour with Lana, and he goes out to get sandwiches and never comes back. She waits for him for a couple of days. Then she figures out he's probably not coming back, and she goes home, and he's taken all their stuff out of his house, out of their home. And then her secretary reminds her that she has written him a $34,000 cashier's check within the last few days. So she calls and puts a stop pay on that puppy. He's already, I think, drawn a little bit down on it, but he disappeared, never to be seen again. Mm-hmm. So weird magician, kind of like Liz Taylor. I feel like her husband's got weirder
progressively so.
Yeah. But so those are her husbands. If you were counting along with us, that's only 7. And she was married 8. Okay. She was married 8 times.
She married the second husband twice.
So Stephen Crane.
Okay.
They go out a little bit longer than she and Artie did before they got married, but she still didn't bother to find out very much about his background.
It was like a week they dated this time.
It was like a week. And he said his family was in the tobacco business. And then they had, she went to his hometown and there was a little, they pull up in front of this little store that said beer, tobaccos, and pool or something like that. So that was the tobacco business. But when he and Lana got married and then she got pregnant, she then found out that there was a first Mrs. Crane. And in fact, she was still Mrs. Crane because he had not waited the appropriate amount of time before he married Lana. So then Lana, okay, and this is, I mean, you can be like, oh, that's funny. And it kind of is, but it also was, this is an emergency. Like she's got this fragile little career that's starting, and all of a sudden she finds herself pregnant and a bigamist, or else not really married.
In 1941, 42.
Yeah, it's not a good look. And she's furious with Stephen Crane, and
rightly so.
She probably never wants to see him again, except she's pregnant with his baby and she can't let her child be born without a father in the 1940s. So they have to get married again. And she goes through several things that should have killed her career
and didn't.
And
like Harlow again.
Yeah.
But like Harlow, there was a scandal with Paul Byrne and Paul Byrne having a common law wife. I mean, there's so many parallels.
Crazy. I haven't put some of these together.
I'm just kind of now doing that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, another thing that's interesting about it is the fact that, okay, so Lana, she gets married very quickly. And I asked David Sten, who's the Harlow biographer and Clairvaux biographer, I asked him once, I said, David, why did these people, some of them got married so many times and they barely knew that person a day, a week, a few weeks, like why? And David said, well, back then, if you dated someone any length of time, the expectation was you kind of had to marry them. That was firmly in place. And he said, and this is, I thought really stayed with me. He said, a lot of these stars were very impulsive people. Mm-hmm. And what made them terrific performers and actors and actresses and all of this made for a lot of trouble in their lives. And I was like, that makes sense though, because in that moment, she might have been just passionately head over heels in love with them. But there's the next day when the sun comes up and you realize they've kind of lied to you. And then you're hit with this realization that all is not what it appears to be. So the impulsivity thing, that really, it makes a lot of sense.
Oh yeah. And I don't think getting married back then, although it was very serious and people stayed married a lot longer than they do now, statistically. I don't think it was like today we're constantly fed this, you find this perfect person and they have to be the one and check all these boxes. And I think back then, like the choices were, you didn't get online and have thousands of choices. It was like you were in this little town, maybe like 10 dudes to choose from. One of them had to like you back, and so then you just got married. I don't think it was like this thought out, strategized 3-year engagement situation that we do now. I don't think that wasn't common then anyway. So I think that's another reason people just got married.
And Lana seems like a very romantic in person also.
Yeah. So, I think she was definitely someone who was always chasing this perfect life.
And another thing just occurred to me, another Harlow Lana parallel. Okay, so when Lana had the scandal with Stephen Crane, because once it got out that, he's already married, it's a scandal, they put her in a movie called Marriage is a Private Affair.
Yes.
Oh my God. And then, but they kind of did that with Harlow too.
Yes, they put her in, what was that movie where I don't want to say what happens, but
she's in a movie called Reckless, where she's married to a guy who dies by suicide, which is what happened in her real life. So it seems like the studio probably had these meetings of like, okay, we've got a red heart star, we've got a scandal. How can we spin this to our benefit? How can we make a movie that will make money and capitalize on their misfortune?
Yeah, such a product mentality.
Oh God, yeah. But it seemed like it's a shame they did not get to know each other, because my God, can you imagine coffee or booze-laced coffee with those two women?
Oh yeah.
I mean, wow. So they put her in marriage as a private affair. But then, so it's kind of life imitating art in a way. And then Lana gets divorced from Stephen Crane, and then she moves on. And meanwhile, her career is really starting to flourish more and more and more at MGM.
Yeah, she starts being cast in more and better movies. And I am gonna fast forward because there's a lot of she has so many movies we can talk about.
So many.
But earlier I referenced her, in Ziegfeld Girl doing a Hollywood imitating itself thing. And I want to fast forward to Bad and the Beautiful.
Love that movie. Directed by Vincent Minnelli.
Yes. And it is the story of three people in Hollywood, a director, a writer, is that right? A director, a writer, and an actress, obviously played by Lana. And Kirk Douglas plays this producer who has managed to screw all three of them over in his rise. And now he wants to reunite with them for a project. And it's just told in flashback. But Lana is this alcoholic daughter of a big film, dead silent film star. And Kirk Douglas's character kind of gets off on this challenge of, I'm going to make her a star at all costs. And she has this amazing breakdown scene in the film. And she really wasn't directed very much. They just put her in this car, which was shaking around because it was supposed to be her driving through a rainstorm, and they're just let go. And she did an amazing job. And I really, gosh, now I'm like, did she get nominated for that? I don't think she did. And she did.
Stars too. Their studios pushed them as hard as they could have to be great dramatic stars, and they kind of had to go to other studios.
And she wasn't in the dramatic star slot.
Yeah, not the slot. She was the sex bomb, which they didn't take as seriously as an actress.
Yeah, so instead they nominated Gloria Graham,
who's barely in the movie. Yeah, I love Gloria Graham. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
but it's like she's in that movie 5 minutes and gets an Oscar, but then she's genius in so many other movies. So it's kind of confusing.
Yeah, but that movie is another one that did really well for Lana.
And I'm kind of paying fashion tribute to Lana today because one of my favorite Lana Turner performances is The Postman Always Rings Twice. And it is a film noir, and Lana is the ultimate femme fatale. And I've read, correct me if I get this wrong, but I've read that when they were shooting it, the censors in studio were real nervous about how sexual Lana was in this performance. And so they decided that the costume designer should clothe her in as much white as possible.
Yes, to look more virginal.
And there's the famous scene where the lipstick rolls at her feet and you pan up and she's wearing these tiny little shorts, this little white shirt, and she's just spectacular.
Yeah, that's, I think, one of the best film entrances.
Besides Gilda, yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And then as the film goes on, at some point, she does turn to start wearing black, and she wears black keyhole shirts with the opening right here with turbans. So I was like, I have both of those things. I'll wear a keyhole and a turban today.
And I have my little Hollywood collection Lana Turner ring.
Yay! But she's so good in that movie. And John Garfield opposite her, he was an actor's actor. He was very serious about the craft. And she's every bit as good as he is. I mean, every single bit is good. It's a terrific performance.
Oh, it's really good. And you know what? I should have brought that up before Bad and Beautiful, because that was, I think, her follow-up to Ziegfeld Girl.
I think it was 46.
Oh, wait.
Postman was?
It was 46. So maybe I'm not right, but it was a follow-up.
But it was a great creative.
It was after that.
It was great looking forward for Lana, because she's so good in the part. The movie's so good. It's really one of the highlights in her filmography.
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely.
And she goes to wearing black in the film, and then she goes back to wearing white in the film. And I'm not going to reveal the ending for those of you who maybe haven't seen it, but if you haven't, see The Postman Always Rings Twice from 1946. It's just a film noir gem.
It's so great. And I love that they shot it in black and white, because at this point they could have shot it in color, but the black and white just makes the story more stark and dramatic. And then with her white wardrobe, I mean, even her hair looks white.
Yeah, it's still platinum.
Yeah.
And her bikini's white. I mean, there's so much white going on in that movie.
Yeah. So definitely, if you're taking notes, you should have written all those 3 down.
Yeah. So she does Bad and the Beautiful. And again, you've got Kirk Douglas, Dick Powell, Gilbert Roland. You've got some serious A-list action here. So stars. So she's fantastic in that one as well. And again, working with Vincent Minnelli, working with a top-notch cast. And she was also her Technicolor debut. It was prompted to be a huge deal because it was her first Technicolor role, was the remake of The Three Musketeers.
Yes, with another great delayed entrance.
Yes, and that was her Technicolor debut. And I've heard that the whole film was being sold on Lana alone. Mm-hmm. Like the rest of the cast is like, yeah, and those other people, whatever. Yeah, but
she didn't want to do that film at first when she was assigned to it. But she was reminded by the studio that she was under contract and she was also supporting her family. So she reports for work, and she finds out she actually really loves playing a villain. She loved Vincent Price. So she has a lot of really fond memories of that film.
That's really cool. And so she continues at MGM for how long? She had a really long run there, right?
Yes, I can't think off the top of my head of when she stopped, but I mean, it was like 15, was it 15 years?
She had a long stretch.
It was a long time. I might have to cheat and look at my script, because I have it all here.
When stars would leave their home studio, they kind of faced a challenge of how to get established at another studio and how to find roles that would transition you from one age to the next. Because Lana basically went from being like a teenage starlet to being a full-fledged adult actress, and primarily in dramas and musicals and all sorts of things. But then she kind of had a mid-career challenge when you're getting a little older and you've got to find roles and adapt to that reality.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm not sure when she left MGM, but
that's okay.
Late 50s.
Late 50s. And okay, so we get to the elephant in the room. Not technically in the room, but kind of in the room, is that, all right, for those of you who may not know, Lana was at the center of one of the greatest scandals in modern Hollywood history. She had just received her first Academy Award nomination, and I think about 1958 for Peyton Place. And this was kind of Lana finally getting recognized with an Oscar nomination, which is a big deal, and Best Actress Oscar nomination. Well, she at the time was dating a mobster named Johnny Stompanato. She did not take Stompanato to the Academy Awards. I believe she took her mom and her daughter or something. So I think, according to what I have read, he was very angry and incensed by that. But Lana, she knew the business, and she felt that if I take a mobster to the Oscars, it is really going to kind of not legitimize me. It's not a good look. I'm not doing it. But Stompanato was mad. And so I think it was Good Friday weekend of 1958. Lana and her Holmby, I believe it's Holmby Hills estate. She's there with her daughter, Cheryl Stompanato. And what we know, Stompanato was angry and in a rage at Lana. He's threatening her. He's screaming at her. The daughter overhears all of this going on. She goes into the kitchen.
Beating the shit out of her.
He's beating her.
He's beating her. Yes.
Yeah. She goes into the kitchen and gets a knife. She walks into the bedroom, and Stompanato turns around and walks into the knife. Now, I'm very interested in true crime, aside from Hollywood history, or in conjunction with it in this case. But I've never heard of anybody walking into a knife with such a force that it would go into their body and kill them like that. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, when I walked into something, you go, oh, shoot, and you realize it pretty quickly and you recoil. So there's a lot about that, what happened and how it happened, that to this day don't quite make sense to me. What do you make of what happened here?
So I have thought a lot about this. And these are just some things that come to mind. I do think if Cheryl, I don't think Cheryl completely took the rap for her mom. I think she was somehow involved in actually killing Stompanato because I mean, say what you want to about Lana. You have to be a really weird, messed up person to let your child take the rap for something like that.
Right? She's a kid and she's hearing her mother be
and she's like 14 years old.
And I've also heard that he threatened to like disfigure her whole face.
Yeah. I mean, and it wasn't the first time this had happened. And it wasn't the first time it had happened with Cheryl in the house. So Cheryl had heard this before, and it was really scary. She can hear him throwing Lana around, and Cheryl's story, which has never really changed. And that's another reason that I do think Cheryl did it. I don't know if the story is kind of weird.
It is weird,
but she went downstairs and they just moved into this house. And so they had, were unpacking. And so there were some knives on the table, and Cheryl said that she wanted to take a knife up and to scare him. I don't think she knew what she was doing. She was just
14 years old. She's scared. I mean,
and this was a relationship that Lana felt very trapped in. He had sort of wormed his way into her life and without revealing who he was. And then one of her friends had to tell her that she was dating a gangster. She had tried to get away from him a few times, and he had showed up. She tried to take off and go leave Europe in a roundabout way, and he showed up at the airport.
He was bad news.
I believe her hairdresser or some male member of her entourage had him deported from I can't remember which country, but she was filming overseas, and he showed up and he beat her up, and she came to set the next day, and they had to do all this stuff. So they had him deported. So it wasn't the first time that this had happened. And it's just such a weird, messy thing. They call the attorney, obviously, before they call the police.
Jerry Giesler, by the way. If you got in trouble in classic Hollywood, Jerry Giesler was like the Saul Goodman of Breaking Bad. He was kind of like the Better Call Jerry Giesler.
Yeah, exactly. And that again, with the Jean Harlow thing, they didn't call the police first and
call the studio.
But yeah, this, we're talking about things that should have ended Lana's career. She's not the hot young sex bomb anymore. And yeah, she just got an Academy Award nomination, but that was kind of an aberration in her career. She was normally not in that kind of conversation. Yeah. And I have a photo here that I pulled out. They're at Cheryl's hearing. So this is her with, I believe that's Stephen Crane, and then her mom. Sorry about the glare. But it's so weird. And then Cheryl, and so Cheryl's story never changes, and she went through a lot. And she had to go off. She never really was in the custody of either one of her parents ever again after this happened. And she went to different reform schools, and
she was in a mental hospital, which she tried to escape from, and it was harrowing.
Yeah, she had a really hard, I don't know that it would ever be easy to be the child of a big film star anyway, and then the Lex Barker thing that we mentioned earlier. And yeah, so I do think Cheryl did it. But as you say, that would have had to have been a really sharp knife.
Yeah, because the joke in the movie, in the musical Chicago, he ran into my knife. He ran into my knife 10 times. It's it just doesn't make sense to accidentally walk into a knife.
Yeah.
It's just I've walked into all sorts of things, but you kind of go, oh shoot, and you just bounce back.
Yeah.
And so
I think she, maybe she had it like this, and she, comes into the room, and he was right, but he actually opened the door. Yeah. So I don't know if he turned around and he was ready to whack her, or if he
Yeah.
The story in one of the books I read was that he had grabbed a lot, but they were fighting and he had grabbed a lot of clothes and he had them slung over his shoulder ready to go.
Mhm.
And so he opened the door and just his little naked belly, or probably not naked, but just a little shirt, and your belly is probably the easiest part of your body to stab.
Well, and then
there's no bone.
the other thing too is that it could have happened in such a split second that no one really wrapped their heads around right away what the heck just happened here.
Yeah.
So it was just so shocking. I mean, I can't remember a scandal in Hollywood history that was as big as this one was. And if you go on YouTube or somewhere online, there is footage of her testifying. And some people said that was one of her greatest performances, was on the stand when she testified in this trial. And it was highly sensational. I'm sure it cost her a fortune because Jerry Giesler, I'm sure, did not come cheap. So it really was a gigantic thing in her career. Do you have a Detour, the copy of Detour?
Yes.
If you guys have never read this, her daughter Cheryl Crane wrote a fantastic memoir about Lana and her relationship and the murder called Detour. You cannot put this book down. It is so juicy. Highly recommend.
And it gives you a lot of insight into Cheryl.
Yeah.
As well, and just what it was like to grow up with Lana Turner as your mother, and in the world of classic Hollywood, and those other children that were part of that. So
and you're right though. Lana once again bounced back from scandal and survived. In fact, I think also they utilize that in the movies like Imitation of Life, where she has the conflicted relationship with her daughter. I think there were several movies that came after that where they kind of had these troubled mother-daughter relationships in the movie, that because I've seen interviews with Cheryl where she says, I lived that scene, except it was in our home. So I think they once again took her personal life and used it to make a profit, basically. But Lana, I'm sure, needed money, and I'm sure she needed good parts at that point and was more than happy to just be working.
Yeah, and I think the first thing she did after that was a film produced by Ross Hunter.
Yes.
And she did a few films with him, but he called her and she was like, I don't know if the public will accept me anymore. I don't know if I'm ready to do this. And the story goes, he talked her into it, and then but I really admire that from what I understand, I don't know that she really was one of the best money managers in the world. So I think she did have to work. But I love that she makes it work, and she kind of keeps up this sort of like sexy, dramatic melodrama persona. And she goes in and does mom roles, but other than that, like, she's still Lana Turner, almost her whole career.
Like, she didn't get frumpy or dowdy in like movies like some of the other ones did at that point. And she retained that glamour. She was even on Falcon Crest at the end of her life. So she kept working until made her first movie in 1937. I think her last thing she did was like 1985.
I think so.
So about a 50 something year career.
Yeah. And she looked really good until the end. Cheryl talks about her being telephone buddies, with some of the other stars when she got older and couldn't get out and around as much. But she, if you read her, so we'll get into the
books, because there's like a pile of Lana books right here.
Okay, so I'm no particular order. It's actually the smallest to largest book. It's just how these are stacked. There's this paperback, Always Lana. It's written by Taylor Perrow and Jeff Rovin, but Taylor was her secretary for a while. And so he's kind of spilling the tea a little bit in this book. And so in these kinds of books, I always take things with a grain of salt, but it's very interesting to read, because it is written from the perspective of someone that was her companion. He was there when the magician husband disappeared, and some of the really big momentous moments of her life. So this is a fun little read. Like, it's not a must read, but it's fun. Okay, so the next book is Lana, The Public and Private Lives of Miss Turner. And I can't believe I'm even showing you this because I'm not going to endorse it. It's Joe Morella and Edward Z. Epstein. They wrote a lot of books.
Yeah, they're not the most reputable.
Yeah. So like read this like you would read Hollywood Babylon. Entertainment, but it's probably,
Fiction.
Probably not completely true. Jane Ellen Wayne wrote this book, just Lana, the Life and Loves of Lana Turner. It's kind of a fun read. She's definitely more accurate than the other two gentlemen we just mentioned. But if you're a big Lana fan, this is one that isn't around as much, so it's kind of interesting. And there's this cute little book that I found at the Larry Edmonds bookshop. And by the way, you should always first check at the Larry Edmonds bookshop.
We love them.
If you want a book, you should call and check and see if they have it.
Because they can order you things too.
Yeah. I mean, support a small business and a business that has books you don't know exist or you don't know that you need. They can find stuff for you. And they are out there doing the work of preserving the classic Hollywood history and legends. So, but this is Lana Turner, A Silver Valley Childhood, and it's just kind of about her childhood and the little town that she grew up in. So if you're a huge fan, this is a fun little book to have. And then the last two are like the books, like you have to read these books. Lana's autobiography, The Lady, the Legend, the Truth. Lana's Truth. But I always love to read autobiographies. Yes, you read them with a grain of salt, but they tell you a lot about a person because an autobiography is always how that person wants themselves to be remembered. So this is a really good book. It goes in depth into a lot of different, all the things we talked about. It's kind of the source because I'll go out on a limb and hope I don't offend anyone if I say there's not been a really great comprehensive Lana Turner biography that's ever been written. So this is going to give you most of the juicy stuff.
And I recommend that with Detour is a side-by-side companion piece because I think that's a great counterbalance one to the other.
And so if that book and Detour had a baby, would be this book. This is Lana, the Memories, the Myths, and the Movies. It's by Cheryl Crane. And she put together, it's a gorgeous book. I know it's hard to do this, but I'll just show you. It's got a lot of photos. And it's got a lot of meat to it. It's not just a coffee table book. There's a good meaty story done by Cheryl. But it focuses a little more on Lana than Detour does because Detour is Cheryl's story. Yeah. And then my favorite part about this book is it has a little filmography at the end that has stills and a little plot line synopsis and a few little fun facts or memories from Lana about each of her films. So good luck finding it, but if you can. You should get it.
And by the way, Lana died of throat cancer in 1995. But before she did, she was one of those stars that did the talk show circuits. Because I went down another rabbit hole doing this. And I found a really early 1982 interview she did with Robert Osborne in 1982. I found that on YouTube. She went on like Phil Donahue. She went on Joan Rivers. Like she did a lot of the talk show circuits and kind of lived to see herself rediscovered and reappreciated before she died.
Yeah, the opening part of her autobiography is her remembering, I think it was a Rockefeller Center honor. It was a series that was put on that honored all of these classic movie stars. So like they did Betty Davis. I'm not sure all the ones that they did, but Lana Turner was one. And she describes that night as the night that she felt like she became a legend and how nervous she was. And she didn't know if people even cared to show up to see her. And the Q&A that she did and the audience response and just how moving that was for her. So I do love a happy-ish ending. Yeah. It's as happy as a movie star ending can be.
Well, I mean, one thing that I've kind of gotten out of reading about Lana is the fact that at the end of the day, she did reconcile with her daughter. They did become very close. Her daughter came out as a lesbian. Lana loved her. Lana accepted that, accepted her. Lana found religion. She found peace, whatever that looked like. She did kind of get to a place of peace at the end of her life. And one of the talk show interviews I saw that really drove me nuts, I can't remember if it was Phil Donahue or one of those guys, but he kept saying, well, why don't you date again, Lana? Come on. Why are you single? And I just wanted to be like, leave that woman alone. She has been through enough, and she does not need a man to be complete on her own. Like, back off, buddy. Like, I found myself just getting angry at watching some of those interviews, but it sounded like she was actually very happy to be on her own, to have her friends, to have her daughter, to bask in her, past glory. And it seemed like she kind of died with a sense of peace.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
And that's
as much as we can know.
As much as we can know, absolutely. But I don't even think she's buried anywhere. I think she was cremated.
She was cremated.
Yeah.
I hate that. I hate when these people get cremated and scattered, because I need closure. I need a place. I need a place to go visit them. And I know they don't care, they're gone, but I care. I'm here.
I'm a huge fan of Vincent Price and Barbara Stanwyck, and both of them. Barbara Stanwyck was scattered at Lone Pine and Vincent Price was scattered in the Pacific Ocean. And I'm like, what about me? What about what I need?
Can we get it what is it called? A cenotaph?
Cenotaph. Yeah.
Can we get a cenotaph?
I just have to figure, I'll watch the movies. I'll make the recipes of Vincent Price. I'll find some way to cling to that love. But yeah, I kind of need a place. It may sound selfish, and I don't mean to be that at all, but I kind of need a spot to just, go and remember them and love them. And,
Yeah, pay a little tribute, but she's out there. I think in the Pacific Ocean specifically.
And what's interesting is how well a lot of her movies have held up historically. In 2017, in December, I remember this because I fell and twisted my ankle and tore the ligament, and I was on crutches for December of 2017. And Lana was star of the month. So if you have to be laid up on crutches for a month, watching Lana Turner movies for a whole month is not a bad way to go. So I literally flew home to Georgia and just laid on my parents' couch and watched Lana for a month. And it was kind of awesome.
Oh, great. Awesome. Yeah.
But one of the jewels that it didn't come up in our conversation, but I do want to recommend to people, is a film called Cass Timberland. Yes. Spencer Tracy and Lana. Mm-hmm. And they're so good together. And it's this kind of this tender melodrama about a marriage and the problems in the marriage and the problems that these two people face separately and together. And it's such an unexpected gem in Lana's career that I never even gave thought to until that Star of the Month thing on TCM. And there were several things that, like I said, I knew would be great, like Postman or something, but it was kind of fun to discover some more deep cuts in Lana's career like that I hadn't really, paid attention to before.
Yeah, I thought I had a photo. I have a lot of photos, and some of them are just digital, so I can't always remember which ones are physical copies.
Album,
yeah. So I'm just going to pull these out so we don't have to hold them up. Okay. But there is one still from They Won't Forget, her first film. And so this is what her first few films, she did them with her own auburn hair color. So that's what that looks like. And then we have Love Finds Andy Hardy. And there's Lana all puckered up with Mickey Rooney. She said that there was, he got around. I think we all know that, but there was never really anything between them. They were just,
I think he claimed there was, but I believe that there probably
Oh yeah, I think so it's interesting in her autobiography. Every now and then she'll make this little catty comment, and and one of them was, she's like, there were all these she's talking about the costumes and then making costumes for the stars, and she said there were all these different mannequins in the
wardrobe department.
Yes. And she says mine was the smallest in the hips and Greer Garson's was the largest. Greer Garson was a tall woman. Turner, like rude.
You know, I noticed, speaking of catty comments, if you guys have never read the autobiography $1 Million Mermaid by Esther Williams, oh my God, she talks about all these screaming sex sounds coming from Lana's dress all the time, and that's juicy too.
Yeah, Fernando Lamas.
Yeah.
Whom she got him fired off of, well, she made a movie with him. And then they started dating, and then they went to a party. She danced with someone else. They came back to the table, and Fernando Lamas told the guy, why don't you just go her in the bushes?
Gosh.
Because I guess he was pissed that she danced with him. So she got really mad. She pulled rank. She had him fired, and that's how we got Ricardo Montalban. But this is Lana and Artie Shaw in the 5 minutes that they were happy in their marriage. And she looks so cute in that.
And by the way, interestingly enough, one of the things I like to talk about Lana is her friendship with Ava Gardner, because they were both huge stars at MGM. They were both sex bombs. They were both involved. Each of them was married to Artie Shaw. Each of them had things with Frank Sinatra. They had so much in common, but they were friends, not enemies. They were buddies. And I love that. I've always been kind of interested by that friendship.
Yeah. And it seems like that would have been really fun to hang out, go out on a night on a town with
I would have given anything.
Yeah.
Like I would have ridden in that back seat for sure.
So fun. This is Ziegfeld Girl. They're practicing their walk. That's Judy Garland sitting on the chest, and obviously Lana walking with the book on her head.
And also apparently Lana warned Ava not to marry Artie Shaw. Like went to Ava and said, do not do this.
Yeah.
Bad idea.
Yeah.
But then happened anyway.
Ava never listened to anyone.
Yeah, true. But we love her still. We love her.
We love her. She did her own thing.
That's right.
So we talked about, we also didn't talk about Lana's, we alluded to her big nightclub phase.
And
Queen
of the nightclub, she was called.
And so this was going on when her star was starting to rise, and Louis B. Mayer called her in the office a few times and was like, you need to calm down. But one of the ways that they would try to combat that, because this was when she had gotten married and divorced within 4 months to Artie Shaw, and then later married Stephen Crane. Oops, he was married, so she had to remarry him. So this all didn't look great. So they love to trot out Cheryl onto the set and be like, yeah, she goes out, but she's a mom. She is responsible. She loves to hang out with her daughter. And so this is Green Dolphin Street. And
kids were kind of used so much for publicity back then. It's really kind of astounding.
Yeah. So Merry Widow, her taking the ultimate bath. I think it's a really cute photo.
It's the only time the Merry Widow has ever been in color.
Oh,
because the silent version in the 20s, the Ernst Lubitsch version in the 30s, and then I think the Lana version was in the 40s.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Good trivia. You guys should win a trivia contest one day from all of these. I just liked this and bought it. I like the hat. I think it looks great.
And Lana was known for her style. She was one of those movie stars, like a lot of them were. They did not go out to the grocery store unless they looked like $1 million head to toe.
Oh, okay. So this just made me think of something, and I know that we have to wrap up.
No, we don't.
We don't. Oh, okay.
Why not?
Okay, let's talk about Lana Turner. When she first started going out and dating, she got involved with this attorney named Greg Botzer. And he was a big, high-profile attorney. He was also really attractive. I actually have a biography of him, which is really an interesting book.
And he ditched her for Joan Crawford, right?
Well, he actually didn't, that I know of, like actually ditch her for Joan Crawford. But this is what happened.
Ooh.
So they're dating. He gave her this little like promise ring situation that she wore on the third finger of her left hand, which is usually where you would wear an engagement ring, and that's where he put it on her hand. And he was like, no, you're my girl. So she was all acting like she was engaged. And he's much older than her. So he was dropping her off and probably, getting action on the side. Maybe he was going to see Joan, but I've read a lot about Joan too. And I know they dated, but so I'm not sure where in the timeline this is going to fall, but
I might not know either.
Joan calls up Lana. And so, okay, I'll tell you my theory about this after I told the story. And she says, Lana, I really, I want you to come over. I need to talk to you about something important. And so Lana goes over and Joan says, I'm just a little older than you. And things are just different when you're a little older. And she just is going on. And Lana's like, what are you trying to tell me? And she says, and Lana's like, she should have gotten an Academy Award for this performance. Lana says this in her autobiography. She's like, Joan kind of like, it's over between you and Greg. And I need to tell you because he's afraid to tell you. And we are in love. I'm the only one that he loves. And anyway, she said something about he just can't get rid of you. And Lana was like, get rid of me? Trash is something you get rid of. A disease is something you get rid of.
Not a person.
And then she left. But anyway, so Joan calls her up and does this whole scene. And I think Joan did date Greg Botzer, so maybe this was an overlap, but I also think it's a little bit of Joan. And I'm going to say, if you've been to any of my presentations, I don't really dislike anyone I ever present on. And even if I do dislike someone, I think it's much more productive to talk about people in 3D and not just believe what you read in these black and white books, because people are not all good or all bad.
I agree.
But I do think Joan had a streak of, there's this hot, new, young person coming along, and I'm going to put her in her place a little bit.
Oh yeah, I firmly believe that.
So that is the Joan Crawford.
I heard a famous story. Greg Boucher said too once that he went to a dinner party with Joan, and that Joan was, they went home and they were showing a film in Joan's house, and he had been working really long hours and he fell asleep in the projection room during the movie, Joan's movie. And that Joan just told everybody, don't bother him. He's had a long day. It's okay. And she locked him in the screening room. And he wakes up the next morning, realizes he's locked in the screening room and has to break out of the window. And then another time, and apparently this was the final time, they go to a party, but he pays attention to another actress at said party. And Joan was, shall we say, displeased. And on the way home, Joan says, honey, I think there's something wrong with the tire. So Joan's driving and she pulls over, I think it's Mulholland or something, and asks him to get out and look at the tire. And then she speeds off and leaves him in the middle of the night in the canyons, and he has to get home. And I think that was kind of the end of the line.
Yeah, I've heard that story too. Joan was crazy.
I love Joan very, very much, but
she had a streak of, she was not messing around.
She was not messing around.
I think this why has this not shown up on the internet as a meme? I don't know. But this is Lana pouring herself a drink in The Bad and the Beautiful, and I think it's a great photo. And I have more Bad and the Beautiful.
And TCM shows Bad and the Beautiful quite a lot. So I noticed that on their schedule, and rightly so. They should show it a lot.
Oh, it's so good. So this is a press photo from that. So all the people that are Kirk Douglas is trying to get together with, and you don't know what they're going to do till the end.
Yeah, it's such a good movie.
Okay, this is a fun picture. Relaxed Lana. She's with, this is Bob Topping. And when she married Bob Topping, it was sort of on the rebound from Tyrone Power.
They had a very torrid affair.
Yes. And Bob Topping started, I'll hold this up while I talk to you. So he's like sending flowers, and, she just is like, I don't really, she goes out with him and she's like, I don't really feel this way about you. And so one night he drops like a crazy huge diamond ring in her martini and asks her to marry him. And he's like, it's okay. You can learn to love me. And she's like, maybe I can. So she tries. But ultimately, like several of her husbands, he ultimately became a financial drain. So
I like the quote in the book. Lana, the mother, sits down and says, Lana, you cannot afford to keep a millionaire. Because
Yes.
he just drained her money left and right. And she didn't really realize what was going on, because I think a lot of these stars, they might have been talented people, but managing money and day-to-day stuff was not their skill set. And so sometimes they would turn around and there's no money and they don't know what happened.
And it's so sad they couldn't trust people to do that.
I mean, think about going through life knowing you can't trust people all the time. That's got to be really hard way to live.
So another press photo of Lana. Lady takes a flyer. And this is, she's getting a little older, but she still looks great, mature, but really beautiful. And I love that she didn't come off as trying to stay 25 years old,
Some of them did. Some of them would be 40 trying to play 20. And some of them, it's interesting the way different actresses handled the unfortunate reality of being older in Hollywood. I kind of wish someone would write a book just on that topic, because I would still read that.
Yeah. Any aspiring authors out there?
Yeah, please. Somebody write that book.
This is a shot for Madam X, which is one of the Ross Hunter movies that she did. And then I bought this. This is her doing promotion for it. And that's the headshot I just showed you on the desk in this shot. So that's her doing promo for her film.
I'm going to check Facebook, see if we got any comments coming
in. Oh, yeah. I feel like the rest of these are just like kind of glamour. Oh, so, this is the town hall where she kind of had the career tribute film.
I'll check Facebook.
Hang on. So, there we go. And that's what she wore, and everyone's cheering for her. So that was one of the best nights of her life. And then I have these little snapshots of her when she was older. And you can see how she just still really kind of takes care of herself. She's actually promoting her book, Lana, The Lady, the Legend, and the Truth. So this is what she looked like older. She kind of keeps, the same look. But
definitely.
She never changes it up.
We got a lot of comments, but nothing that is popping up as like a question so far or anything. But definitely people agreeing that Cass Timberlane is a really good film.
Yes. I thought I had a photo of it, but I don't.
And I gave April for her birthday, belatedly, a Lana Turner photo play that I found in an estate sale.
I'm so excited about this.
I think it's unfortunately been cut up a bit, but I bet there's still some great articles and great artwork in this.
It looks like someone made like a collage, because it's like it's like Lana's all there. It's just like they cut an ad out or something. I don't care. I think it's awesome. I can't wait to read it.
It was so beautiful. The minute I saw that, I'm like, April's birthday.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's been a fun little kitchen talk.
Yes, it sure has. So I think that's it. I mean, God, I could talk about Lana all day because there's so much to unpack about Lana Turner.
Yeah. She's really interesting. All those parallels with Jean Harlow. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to go think about that.
Same. One thing I did want to conclude with, though, I did look into her eating habits. Her daughter Cheryl said Lana was the slowest eater on the planet. It would take her forever to get through her meal. And according to an interview I saw, she had about 5 or 6 meals a day, but they were really, really tiny meals because she felt better about eating that way. And she apparently had quite the appetite, but she just wasn't a cook, and that wasn't her thing. So that's why I felt we had some creative freedom to make milkshakes today.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I definitely agree. I don't know that she did much but shake up martinis in the kitchen. So
exactly. Well, April, thank you for joining me. I hope we can do this again. This is so much fun. I would love that too.
And thank you guys for watching. And
where can people find your tours, your seminars, your webinars? Tell us where people can find all your information.
Oh, yeah. So oldhollywoodtour.com. And that has a link to a presentation I'm doing September 23rd, which is a Saturday. It's a Zoom presentation, and it's all about little neighborhood Hollywood theaters and some of the interesting history about that and the experience of going to the movies during the golden age of Hollywood. And then I do a walking tour. It's a historic walking tour of Hollywood. It kind of tells the story about how Hollywood came to be. in just like 5 or 6 blocks. So it's not, I made this tour. I'm going to tell you guys, I was pregnant. And so it has bathroom stops, it has snacks and water.
You don't have that anyway. Right.
But I do those currently just by appointment, and you can get in touch with me on the website. It's again, it's oldhollywoodtour.com. But yeah, I would love to see you on a presentation or see you for a tour. And yeah, this has been so fun. And if you're on Instagram, I'm April's Hollywood. So April with an S, April's Hollywood.
Alrighty, everybody. Well, this has been so much fun. And thank you so much. I do have a Patreon, by the way, if anybody wants to contribute. Proceeds go to get supplies and ingredients for recipes. And thank you all for watching. Please stay tuned for more food, fun, and film history from Hollywood Kitchen.